Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and are they going to force the vaccine on you in the United States or elsewhere? And that question remains kind of at the tip of our lips because it's a very real possibility, but is it going to be by force, by conquest, or is it going to be by consent or by, maybe social credit, technocracy? And we're going to get into that today because we have this article out of Zero Hedge that says Trump says he won't force Americans to take COVID-19 vaccine. I find it really interesting because every time you watch a lot of these Trump, rallies, he'll mention the vaccines, everyone's like cheering, and then he mentions vaccines and everyone kind of goes, he needs to understand where his own base is on this issue, because a good percentage of them are not fans of vaccines, and rightly so. About 60% of Americans polled secretly don't want to take or be forced vaccinated. Though the fact that like 40% are on the fence about it is really, really scary. And I think there's a lot more to this story. So I'm going to get into that and more today. But first, make sure to hit that like button, share on social media. And of course, we are just on BitChute, LBRY/Odysee, as well as Flote.app. Please join all three. We are completely banned from YouTube for the most absurd reasons, bullying by saying that Hollywood celebrities tend to be aristocratic and talk down to people from their mansions while their assistants go out of work. Anyway, apparently that's bullying, but taking everyone's livelihoods away isn't bullying. That's good to know. Anyway, we are going to get louder and more controversial than ever because screw this. I'm not shutting up. I'm not self-censoring, and I just don't care anymore. We are at the end game here, and we need to be louder than ever before. Also join our newsletter at www.iambanned.com, and we are completely viewer funded, so check out GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We really could appreciate, we could use help right now, and there's Bitcoin below as well. Anyway, as this article says, Trump says he won't force Americans to take COVID-19 vaccine. Well, force is a funny word, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but as the article says, it's not every day that the President Trump outflanks his progressive critics on the issue of consent. But according to some recent comments from the president, skeptics worried about the prospect of mandatory vaccination orders in the US and in the UK have rallied to voice their opposition. But if President Trump is re-elected, Americans who are concerned about some experts have characterized as a rushed approval process for the COVID-19 vaccine won't need to worry about being forced to accept the vaccine and vaccinate their children, because President Trump says he will not issue a mandate requiring that individuals receive the coronavirus vaccine once one becomes widely available. Though it seems almost the opposite when you hear him say that multiple times that he's going to mobilize the military to make sure everyone gets vaccinated. That's a little creepy. Maybe it's taken out of context and maybe he needs to find different words, but nonetheless, that's a little weird. Carrying on, it says, while Trump claimed that essential workers and other people would take priority, the president made a brief detour during the interview with Fox's Stuart Varney that he won't require vaccinations because some people feel very strongly about the issue, Trump said. Bill Gates, who insists that everyone, all 7+ billion humans on the planet, must be vaccinated to completely stamp out the virus and reduce its incidence to zero. And I quote, "I don't believe I'd ever do a mandated vaccine," the president told Fox's Stuart Varney. "I just don't think I would do that, where you have to have it, because there are some people who feel very strongly about the whole situation," Trump said. That doesn't really confirm my concerns at all, President Trump. The whole, I don't believe I'd do it. I just don't think I would do it. I need a little bit more confirmation than that, but of course I'm not going to get it, and there's more to this that I'm going to get into in a moment. But as it continues here, it says, polls suggest roughly 50% of Americans would decline to take a COVID-19 vaccine, regardless of the developer, due to concerns about the approval process, which Bill Gates himself once denounced as potentially corrupt, blaming President Trump's insistence on approving a vaccine before Election Day. Now, here's the thing. You have a lot of these people kind of just saying, well, it probably won't happen, and it's probably, don't worry about it. The thing is, the forced vaccination side in the U.S. probably won't happen. It'll be by consent that it'll happen. It's not going to be them putting guns to your head and saying you have to take it. It'll be them saying if you don't take it, your social credit score is going to collapse, and then you can't go into public places, you can't go to restaurants, you can't travel, you can't get a bank account, you can't get a job, you can't do anything. And that is one of the major issues that we're facing going forward, because I actually think vaccines might be the most important thing that we have to be focused on going forward, which is why it's one of the main things not allowed on YouTube. Luckily, we're not on YouTube anymore, right? I mean, it's just, this is totally insane, because what I do believe is going to happen is, and they've already hinted at it, once a vaccine becomes available and it's not tested, and even if it was after 6 years, which is a usual timeline or so, it's still, even if it was, it wouldn't be something that I would take. And unfortunately, I mean, I do know a lot of people that are not into the fringe of, conspiracy or whatever you want to call it, even though it's just fact, that are saying that they refuse, they will not take it. And I'm getting this from left and right. I'm getting it from across the board because it's sketchy. You have no testing on this thing that's already giving people in test processes neurological damage. I wonder what's going to happen, even if it's minor neurological damage that isn't symptomatic, like, COVID most of the time. So this is the thing. They are talking about having this vaccine delivered every month possibly, because it'll be something that you'll need to regularly take in order to be okay. Bullshit, but also that's what they're saying. And that concerns me, that we are going to be vaccinated. I'm not, but many people out there are going to be vaccinated with a vaccine that causes brain damage and makes us stupid, possibly more complacent. This has been a plan for a long time, but the government, why wouldn't they have that? If they want some, full control, they need technocracy, they need an invisible enemy, and they need dumb people. And that's what they're going to get out of this. If they are delivering these vaccines to all these people and giving people brain damage across the board, and look, even a lot of the most awake people on this issue are still going to take it out of fear of losing their kids, fear of being socially pushed, shoved out of their social circles and stuff like that. I think it's really important to understand how fear reigns in this situation. And then comes the most important part. The Chinese-style technocracy. And it's not China necessarily, it's global technocracy. It's something, as I mentioned before, Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in China early on in the 70s against Nixon's wishes to prop up an artificial alliance for trade and barter with China, which really propped up China as a major guinea pig state. Mao had already killed 50 million people at that point. It's disgusting. Going forward, Zbigniew Brzezinski and the creation of the Trilateral Commission and his whole goal to create a technocratic superstate, and China was a main beneficiary of that Trilateral Commission. And going forward to today, they have Sesame credit / social credit in China, where if you say something negative about the government, you can be shunned from society, your honor system goes down, you can't get a bank account, you can't go to public places, you can't fly on planes. In some places, if your credit score is just high enough but kind of low, you can go on planes where they blast a high-pitched blaring sound frequency into your ear so you're uncomfortable and feel sick. Really insane stuff. You can't get a bank account, you can't go to school, you can't, and your kids are taken away by the government, and it's a credit system that's like a video game for people, that they're like, if I'm good, maybe I'll get good things, and I'll get, money off on these things, and I don't have to pay higher taxes and stuff like that. Insane stuff like that. So it's not mandatory that you end up having to, get this vaccine. It's by consent, because if you don't get the social credit score, it'll be like you don't get a credit card, and then it's really difficult to do things. And eventually it'll be overwhelmingly difficult when they go cashless, because you won't be able to spend cash almost anywhere except for in back alleys, where basically you are going to have to be forced into rural or communities or the wilderness to be able to survive without getting into this beast system. And eventually they'll catch up to you there as well. So this is the thing. They will have these social credit scores, and if you don't get the vaccine, your social credit score is going to crash, and you won't have a certificate tied to it. They won't have to put a chip in your arm. They have facial recognition everywhere, and you won't be able to go into any restaurants or anything like that, any grocery stores, etc. You won't be able to get apps just to get the food delivered. Little things like that. Guys, this all adds up, and eventually this will happen. I'm positive of it, unless people rise up. But people aren't rising up. For the most part, there's people protesting in multiple places, but largely a lot of people are just asking the government for permission. Don't ask the government for permission. Be the permission. You are free or you're not. Freedom isn't external. It is you or you aren't free. And if you're not free, you're a slave. It's not an externalized thing. You are the freedom or you're not. So when it comes down to it, it's about living by example and disobeying. And if more people did it, it would be a much better world we live in. But unfortunately, everyone's consumed by fear. And unfortunately, like we have these articles, well, Donald Trump isn't going to force the vaccine. Well, maybe the whole idea wasn't to actually force it into your arms, which people in Australia and other people have been talking about. Maybe it's not that. Perhaps, just perhaps, it's through the social credit system. So it's not forced, it's voluntary. But if you don't get it, your life sucks because you can't do anything. And this Chinese-style technocracy has been waiting in the long grass for a long time now. And it's been building up slowly but surely. And the New World Order is in the U.S., though the U.S. helped prop up this entity. It's China. And it's China working with the international community to develop its ideas, its technocratic ideals worldwide, which is why, for example, the U.S. government had funded millions of dollars in grants for Dr. Fauci, his organization, the Institute for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, to study coronavirus in bats in Wuhan, China, at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which was 96% similar to the novel coronavirus. And the whole point of the study was to spread it to humans. This was always a combined job of the U.S. government, the military-industrial complex, the big pharma institutions in China. It's not China attacking the U.S. It's not the U.S. attacking China. It's just the idea of technocracy in hiding for decades, building up to today where the government has so much potential to control humanity. Why would they relent it? They have a perfect opportunity using COVID BS to enforce this kind of totalitarianism. So you have technocracy, and then you have the Chinese style worldwide. We already see that to a great extent in Australia and places like Darwin, and it's really growing everywhere else as well. Weirdly, in Sweden, despite the fact that they didn't lock down, Sweden has been very, very technocratic for a long time. And again, if the system's cashless, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. If your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money. It's always the banks, and you are essentially enslaved to the banking system and therefore the government. Keep that in mind and understand it, or else forever hold your peace and go down with the ship. Anyways, I really appreciate everyone watching this video today. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the notification bell on BitChute so you're actually notified. Same with going to LBRY/Odysee and of course Flote.app. Join all three of them because it really helps keep us alive. Whatever might happen, it's good to be on all of them. And it's only 3 platforms versus the mainstream platforms, which are what? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, Snapchat, WhatsApp. It just go LinkedIn. There's so many mainstream ones, and people always say, "Oh, I don't want to join all 3 of those platforms." It's 3 platforms versus like a million that most people are on. So surely you could go on 3. I really appreciate the people that have been supportive, and of course we are completely viewer funded, 100%. So you can check the links below for that. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, Bitcoin, the CoinTree link, which leads to all of the other cryptocurrencies. Of course, IamBanned.com, www.IamBanned.com is our newsletter, and of course, again. We need people to put pressure on Team YouTube on Twitter. So at World Alt Media, you can find my pinned tweet about how it was deleted from YouTube. Please retweet that, like it, and comment on it, and comment to Team YouTube and tell them to reinstate our channel. I don't want it to be reinstated so I can post on YouTube exclusively anymore, because I'm not doing that. That's over. But I want to preserve my content that in many cases is history, like going to places in the Middle East and going on the ground in places like Africa at the Eye of the Sahara, the reshot structure, being the only person in history to actually do a documentary there. I really appreciate you guys preserving that, and I want to be able to send messages to the people, the 95% of people that are still on, that were subscribed to World Alternative Media, that have no idea that I was deleted. I need to spread that message to people so that we can continue on in spreading the truth and demanding freedom. Anyways, I really appreciate everyone watching, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change, and check out this Bitcoin address that you can help save independent media with.